The grand chamber of the Galactic Council floated in the silent void of space, orbiting the glowing capital world of Zentara Prime. Inside the massive structure, 47 different alien species gathered in their usual seats. They had ruled this part of the galaxy for 12,000 years. They were old. They were powerful. They thought they knew everything. Today they were making a decision about humanity. Ambassador Chen Wei stood alone in the center of the chamber. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been coming to this chamber for 5 years now, asking the same question. Today would be his last visit. The Zentari Empress sat on her high throne. Her blue skin glowed in the soft light. She looked down at Chen with eyes that showed no kindness. Around her, the other council members whispered to each other. Some looked bored. Others looked angry. None looked friendly. The vote came quickly. 47 lights turned red on the display board. Red meant no. It was the same answer humanity had received every time for 50 years. Chen had expected this. But what came next was worse. The Empress spoke in a voice that echoed through the chamber. Her words were translated into hundreds of languages, but the meaning was clear in all of them. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity was violent. Humanity could not be trusted. Therefore, humanity must be controlled. The new rules were harsh. Humans could not travel to new worlds. They could only stay on the 12 planets they already had. Human ships had to pay huge taxes when they traded with other species. Human ships needed council guards to travel anywhere. The council called these rules protection. Chen called them a cage. Then Kazethral stood up. He was the ambassador for the Vraxian hegemony. The Vraxians looked like giant insects with hard black shells and too many eyes. They were the military force of the council. They enforced the rules. They enjoyed enforcing the rules. Zethral pointed one of his sharp claws at Chen. His voice was like metal scraping on metal. He called humans primitive. He called them warlike. He said they would drag the galaxy into darkness if they were allowed to grow stronger. Chen stood very still. He was not a soldier. He was a diplomat. He had spent his whole life trying to find peaceful solutions to problems. But right now, looking at the alien who insulted his entire species, he felt something dark growing inside him. He spoke quietly, but everyone heard him. His words were simple. You mistake our patience for weakness. You should reconsider. The council chamber filled with laughter. The Empress smiled. Xethral made a clicking sound that was Vraxian laughter. They thought Chen was making a joke. A human threatening the Galactic Council? Impossible. Funny. Guards came and escorted Chen out of the chamber. As he walked down the long hallway, he could still hear them laughing behind him. 3 days later, the Vraxian fleet began enforcing the new rules. They did not enforce them gently. The first victims were 3 colony ships heading to a world called New Terra. The ships were full of families, children, old people, scientists and farmers who wanted to start a new life on a new world. They were unarmed. They had no weapons. They were just people looking for hope. The Vraxian warships surrounded them. They forced the colony ships to stop. Then they boarded them. The Vraxian soldiers were not kind. They beat the crew members. They threw people around. They took all the supplies. Then they locked 12,000 colonists in prison cells on a military station. The news spread across human space like fire. People were angry. People were scared. But worse was coming. Human merchant ships were stopped next. Vraxian soldiers boarded them. They searched through everything. They stole cargo. They beat crew members who complained. Some humans fought back. Those humans died. Then came the worst day. A human research station orbited a distant star. It was called Hope Station. 847 scientists worked there. They studied stars and planets. They were trying to understand the universe. They had no weapons. They had no shields. They were researchers, not soldiers. The Vraxian fleet found them. They did not ask questions. They did not give warnings. They simply opened fire. The station exploded in seconds. 847 people died instantly. The Vraxians recorded the whole thing. Then they broadcast it across the galaxy. The message was clear. This is what happens when you do not obey. This is what happens when you resist. This is your lesson in compliance. For 3 days, every news station in human space showed the footage. People cried. People screamed. People demanded action. Then, on the 4th day, something strange happened. Earth went completely silent. All human communication channels closed. Every human diplomatic office shut down. Human ships stopped moving. Human colonies stopped broadcasting. The entire human civilization just went quiet. The council noticed. They talked about it in their meetings. Some were nervous. Most were pleased. The humans had finally learned their place. The humans had finally accepted that they could not win. Days passed. Then weeks. 30 days of complete silence from humanity. The Vraxians celebrated. They had broken the human spirit. They had won without even fighting a real battle. Kazethral made speeches about how easy it had been, how weak humans really were, how the council had been right to reject them. What the council did not know was what humanity had been doing for the past 50 years. What they did not know was that every time the council rejected humanity, every time they said no, every time they laughed, humans were building something in secret. They were building ships. They were building weapons. They were building a military force unlike anything the galaxy had seen in thousands of years, because humans had learned something in their long history on Earth, something the Council had forgotten in their 12,000 years of peace. They had learned that if you want peace, you must be ready for war. On day 31, the silence broke, but it was not broken by words. It was broken by weapons. And the Galactic Council was about to learn what happened when you pushed humanity too far. Admiral Thexkar of the Vraxian fleet was having a good day. Actually, he was having a great day. 600 of his warships floated in perfect formation around the Kaltos system. They had just finished their celebration. 30 days ago, they had crushed the human spirit. Now humanity was silent, broken, defeated. Thexkar sat in his command chair, all four of his eyes watching the peaceful view of space outside. His soldiers were relaxed. Some were sleeping. Others were playing games. There was no danger here. Humans had given up. Then his sensors started beeping. At first, it was just a few strange readings. Space was doing something weird. The sensor officer called it a spatial anomaly. Nothing to worry about. Probably just natural. Then the readings increased. Dozens of anomalies. Then hundreds. Then space itself seemed to tear open. Ships appeared. Human ships. But something was wrong. They were appearing too fast. There were too many of them. And they were appearing in patterns that should not be possible with normal space travel technology. Thexkar stood up from his chair. His celebration mood vanished. He started counting the human ships on his display. 100 ships. 200. 500. 1,000, the numbers kept climbing. 2,000 human warships materialized around his fleet. They appeared from nowhere, surrounding the Vraxians completely. The trap was perfect. Thexkar had 600 ships. The humans had 2,000, but numbers were not everything. Vraxian ships were bigger, stronger, they had better weapons. They had better shields. They had won 1,000 battles. He opened a communication channel to demand their surrender. But before he could speak, his tactical officer screamed a warning. The humans were firing, but these were not normal weapons. Vraxian shields were designed to stop energy weapons, plasma beams, particle cannons, the kind of civilized weapons that the Council species used. Weapons that were predictable. Weapons that followed the rules. Humans did not use energy weapons, they used metal. Simple, primitive metal. But they fired it at incredible speeds. 15% of the speed of light. At those speeds, a small piece of metal had more energy than a nuclear bomb. The Vraxian shields might as well have been made of paper. 300 Vraxian ships exploded in the first 40 seconds of battle. Just gone. Erased from existence. The metal bullets punched through shields, through armor, through everything. Ships broke apart like toys. Thexkar ordered his fleet to return fire. Vraxian plasma cannons lit up space with brilliant colors. They hit human ships. The energy beams struck true, but the human ships kept flying. The humans had studied Vraxian weapons for 50 years. They knew exactly how the plasma cannons worked. They knew exactly how to defend against them. Human ships had layers of protection, special armor that absorbed heat, electromagnetic fields that pushed plasma away, tiny defensive drones that intercepted incoming shots. The Vraxian weapons barely scratched the human hulls. Thexkar tried everything. He tried different formations. He tried focusing fire on single targets. He tried retreating. Nothing worked. Human ships were faster. They jumped around the battlefield using their advanced drives. They appeared behind Vraxian ships. They appeared below them. They appeared everywhere at once, and they never stopped firing. 500 Vraxian ships were gone, then 550. 6 minutes had passed since the battle started. Thexkar realized he was going to die. His entire fleet was going to die. He opened an emergency channel. He tried to surrender. The human response came quickly, but it was not words. It was a video, his own video. The destruction of Hope Station. 847 humans dying. The video that the Vraxians had broadcast as a lesson. The video they had been so proud of. The humans played it back to him. No words, just the video. The message was clear. You showed us no mercy. We will show you none. 8 minutes after the battle started, the last Vraxian ship exploded. 600 warships. Thousands of soldiers. All gone. Then a human voice broadcast on all council communication frequencies. Every species in the galaxy could hear it. The voice belonged to Admiral Marcus Okonkwo, commander of the human fleet. His words were simple and cold. You called us primitive. You called us violent. You were half right. We are violent. But we are not primitive. We learned warfare in the ashes of our own world wars. We learned patience in the cold of space. You have had 12,000 years of peace. We have had 300 years to prepare for war. This is not a battle. This is an invoice. You will pay for every human life you took. Before the council could respond, reports started flooding in from across Vraxian space. Human fleets were attacking 15 different Vraxian worlds at the same time. But these were not invasions. Humans were not trying to conquer planets. They were not trying to kill civilians. They were destroying military targets with surgical precision. Orbital defense platforms exploded. Shipyards burned. Military command centers vanished in flashes of light. But hospitals remained untouched. Schools remained safe. Civilian homes were not harmed. The humans were sending a message. We can reach you. We can destroy your military. We choose not to hurt your innocent people. But we could. Remember that. Within 6 hours, the Vraxian military was crippled. The species that had enforced council law for thousands of years could not enforce anything anymore. The council gathered in emergency session. The chamber that had been so full of laughter 30 days ago was now filled with fear. Representatives screamed at each other. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted revenge. The Empress made the decision. She would not bow to primitives. She would not let humans frighten the council. They would gather every military ship from every member species. They would create an armada so large that the humans would have no choice but to surrender. 8,000 warships began moving toward human space. It was the largest military force assembled in galactic history. Ships from 47 different species. The combined might of the entire Galactic Council. They intercepted the human fleet at a point in space called the Rubicon Line. It was neutral territory. A place where neither side had claimed control. The Council fleet stopped and waited. They sent a message demanding that the human fleet approach for negotiations. 2,000 human ships emerged from their faster-than-light travel. They formed up in front of the massive Council armada. The Council had 8,000 ships. The humans had 2,000. The odds were 4-1. Victory was certain. Admiral Okonkwo received the Council's demand for negotiation. His reply was short: you should have sent more. And then the real war began. Grand Marshal Velshara had never lost a battle. In her 300 years of military service, she had commanded fleets in 20 major conflicts. She had defended Council space against pirates, rebels, and rogue systems. She had never known defeat. Today, she commanded 8,000 warships. Behind her were the military forces of 47 different species. This was not just a fleet. This was the combined might of galactic civilization itself. Ahead of her position, 2,000 human ships floated in space. They had arranged themselves in a defensive sphere. All their ships pointed outward like a ball covered in spikes. Velshara had seen this formation before. It was a defensive position, a desperate formation, the kind of thing you did when you were surrounded and scared. The humans knew they were outnumbered. They were trying to protect themselves from all directions. She almost felt sorry for them. She opened a communication channel to the human fleet. Her voice was calm and professional. She offered them terms. Surrender now. Return to your worlds. Pay for the damage you have caused. The Council would be merciful. There would be trials, not massacres. Justice, not revenge, the human admiral replied. His voice sounded tired but also amused. Marshal, your species has been civilized so long you have forgotten what war actually means. Velshara frowned. She gave the order to advance. 8,000 ships began moving forward. They used the hammer and anvil formation. It was a classic tactic, thousands of years old. It had won countless battles. Part of the fleet would hold the enemy in place. The other part would surround and crush them. The council fleet moved closer. The human sphere contracted, pulling tighter together. They looked even more defensive now, even more scared. Then just as the council fleet reached firing range, every human ship launched something. Velshara's sensor officer shouted in confusion. Each human ship was releasing thousands of small objects. The objects were tiny, too small to be missiles, too small to be dangerous, but there were so many of them. 2,000 human ships. Each ship launching 20,000 objects. 40 million small machines flooding into space between the two fleets. By the time sensors identified what they were, it was too late. Drones. Autonomous hunter-killer drones. Each one the size of a small dog. Each one powered by a tiny reactor. Each one programmed with a single mission. Find an enemy ship. Burn through its hull. Destroy it from the inside. The swarm hit the Council fleet like a plague. Council warships had weapons designed to fight other warships. Big cannons for big targets. The drones were too small, too fast, too many. Point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but there were thousands attacking each ship. The drones latched onto hulls. They burned through armor with fusion torches. Tiny holes appeared in ship after ship. Then the drones crawled inside. They were smart. They knew where to go. Engine rooms, weapon systems, life support, command centers. They destroyed critical systems. They cut power lines. They punctured fuel tanks. One by one, council ships went dark. Engines failed. Weapons stopped working. Life support shut down. Entire warships turned into floating coffins. The council fleet panicked. Ships broke formation. Some tried to run. Others started firing at anything that moved, including their own allies. Ships covered in drones became targets for desperate gunners who shot first and asked questions later. The perfect formation collapsed into chaos. Ships crashed into each other. Friendly fire killed hundreds of vessels. The drones kept coming. Then the human sphere exploded outward. It had never been a defensive formation. It was a launch platform. And now that the drones had done their job, now that the council fleet was blind and confused and fighting itself, the human ships attacked. But they did not use their railguns this time. They used something else, something the council had never seen before. Each human ship became a star. For just a fraction of a second, nuclear weapons detonated inside special chambers. The explosions were channeled, focused, directed. All that energy, all that heat, turned into a single beam of destruction. The beams crossed space in milliseconds. They struck council ships. No shields could stop them. No armor could withstand them. The temperature of these beams was hotter than the surface of a star. Ships did not explode. They vaporized. They simply ceased to exist. Matter turned to gas in an instant. Entire warships erased from reality. Each beam could destroy multiple targets. The energy would punch through one ship and keep going to hit the next. And the next, and the next. Velshara watched her fleet die. She had started with 8,000 ships. After 1 hour, she had fewer than 100. After 90 minutes, she had 30. Her own flagship was damaged. Emergency lights flickered. The deck was covered in debris. Half her crew was dead. She sent out a distress signal, a surrender, a plea for mercy. No response came. She realized what she had done wrong. She had expected the battle she trained for. The battle she understood. Ships firing at ships. Formation against formation. Honor and tactics and tradition. But humans did not fight that battle. They fought the battle they wanted. They made the council fleet fight on human terms. They had trapped the council into fighting the wrong way. Her final message was broadcast to all council worlds. A warning. A confession. A truth that came too late. They do not fight like soldiers. They fight like survivors. Then her ship exploded. The last council vessel at the Rubicon line was gone. Of 8,000 ships, 31 survived. They were damaged wrecks running for their lives. The battle had lasted 2 hours. Human casualties were 140 ships destroyed. 28,000 personnel dead. It was the worst day in human military history. It was also the greatest victory. Every species in the galaxy watched the recordings. The entire Galactic Council military destroyed in 2 hours. Species that had ruled for thousands of years, beaten by primitives in a single afternoon. Panic spread across Council space. If the combined fleet could not stop humanity, what could? Individual species began preparing for invasion. Some tried to make secret peace deals with Earth. Others simply evacuated their border worlds. Admiral Okonkwo broadcast his message across every communication channel in the galaxy. His voice was cold and final. The human demands were simple. Release all human prisoners immediately. Pay for the deaths at Hope Station. Recognize human sovereignty over 50 systems of our choosing. Withdraw from 30 systems bordering human space. The Vraxian leadership must face trial for war crimes. You have 72 hours to comply. If you refuse, we will not negotiate again. We will not send diplomats. We will send colonists to your worlds most of the Council wanted to accept. They had lost. They knew it. They would give humanity whatever they wanted, but the Zentari Empress refused. She had ruled the Council for 2 centuries. She had never bowed to anyone. She would not bow to humans. She would not let primitives dictate terms to galactic civilization. She had one final card to play. A weapon so terrible that it had not been used in 10,000 years. A weapon that the Council kept hidden. A weapon of last resort. The Stellar Convergence Array. It was ancient technology, built by the species who came before the Council. It could reach across space and ignite a star. Make it explode. Destroy everything in the system. The Empress gave the order. Target the Sol system. Target Earth's sun. The weapon powered up. Massive generators across Council space activated. Energy began building. In 48 hours, Earth's sun would explode. The entire Sol system would be destroyed. Earth, Mars, Venus, all the human colonies in that system. 11 billion people would die. The Empress broadcast her own message. Simple and final. We will not bow to primitives. We built this civilization. Stand down or Earth burns. For the first time since the war began, humanity went silent again. The clock was ticking, and the galaxy held its breath. The news reached Earth in seconds. Sensors detected the massive energy buildup. Scientists calculated what it meant. The Council was going to make Earth's sun explode. 11 billion people had 48 hours to live. Panic spread across the planet. The government tried to keep order. But how do you keep order when everyone knows they are about to die? People called their families. They said goodbye. They held their children. Some prayed. Some cried. Some simply stared at the sky, waiting. The military gathered in emergency session. Generals and admirals argued. Some wanted to evacuate as many people as possible. Others wanted to launch one final attack on the Council. But there was no time for evacuation, and revenge would not save Earth. Then an old woman walked into the meeting room. Admiral Sarah Chen was 83 years old. She was Ambassador Chen Wei's daughter. She had retired from military service 20 years ago. Most people had forgotten about her, but some people remembered. She had been the head of Earth's most secret military project. A project so classified that only 5 people knew about it. A project that had started 300 years ago when humanity first reached the stars. She spoke 3 words. Activate Project Persephone. The room fell silent. The generals who were old enough to remember that name went pale. The younger officers looked confused. Sarah Chen explained. 300 years ago, when humans invented faster-than-light travel, they made a decision. They would explore the galaxy. They would try to join galactic civilization. They would try to make peace, but they would also prepare for the worst. For 300 years, every time a human ship visited Council space, it left something behind. Something small, something hidden, something that the Council never detected. Ships disguised as debris, ships hidden in asteroid fields, ships floating in the dark between stars. Each one carried a weapon. Each one was aimed at a Council homeworld. 47 species. 47 hidden bombs. Each bomb contained enough antimatter to crack a planet's crust, to make continents sink, to boil oceans, to kill billions. It was humanity's insurance policy. If anyone tried to destroy Earth, Earth would destroy them. All of them. Every homeworld. Every capital. Every center of Council civilization. Mutually assured destruction on a galactic scale. Sarah Chen broadcast activation codes on all frequencies. Across council space, ghost ships woke up. Silent vessels that had floated for centuries suddenly powered their systems. Targeting computers activated. Weapons armed. Then Earth sent its message to the council. The message included coordinates. 47 sets of coordinates. Each one showing where a hidden bomb was located. Each one proving that humanity could reach their worlds. The message was simple. You light our sun. We crack your worlds. All of them. Simultaneously. You will have no homeworld to return to. No capital to rebuild from. You will be refugees in your own colonies, and we will hunt those colonies next. The council chamber exploded into chaos. Representatives screamed. Some called for emergency evacuations. Others demanded that the council surrender immediately. Smaller species blamed the Zentari, Empress, for bringing this nightmare upon them. The unity that had held the council, together for 12,000 years, shattered in minutes. Council military forces tried to find the bombs. They sent ships to every coordinate. But each location was vast. Space was huge. Finding a small stealth ship in an asteroid field was impossible. Finding 47 of them was beyond impossible. Every species suddenly realized their homeworld was hostage, their most important world, their birth planet, the center of their civilization. One button push from humanity and it would be gone. The Empress refused to back down. She sat on her throne and declared that humanity was bluffing. Humans would not kill innocent billions. Humans always talked about civilization and rules. They would not break their own morality. The countdown continued. 6 hours remained until Earth's sun would ignite. Sarah Chen broadcast another message. This time it was not to the Council. It was to Earth, to humanity, to the 11 billion people waiting to die. She did not lie to them. She did not give them false hope. She told them the truth. Our species has survived extinction before. We survived ice ages. We survived plagues. We survived our own nuclear weapons. We climbed from the ashes and reached the stars. If we burn today, we will not burn quietly. We will not burn alone. We will drag this galaxy down with us. That is not a threat. That is what we are. That is what we have always been, survivors. The Empress watched the broadcast. For the first time she felt uncertain. Was humanity bluffing? Or were they truly capable of genocide on a galactic scale? 1 hour remained. The stellar convergence array was almost fully charged. Soon it would be irreversible. Then sensors detected something near Zentara Prime, a ship decloaking, appearing just 50 kilometers above the planet's surface, so close that defensive systems could not respond in time. The ship's identification came through. HFY Prometheus, Earth's first faster-than-light prototype, the ship that disappeared 50 years ago on its maiden voyage. It had never disappeared. It had been hidden, waiting, positioned above the Council's capital world. The ship broadcast a signal. Not words, just numbers. A countdown. 60 seconds until detonation. The bomb aboard Prometheus contained enough antimatter to turn the entire capital planet into an expanding cloud of debris. Billions of Zentari would die. Their civilization would end. The Empress had a choice. Let the countdown continue and prove humanity was bluffing, or stop the stellar convergence array and save her world. 50 seconds. 40. 30. The Empress could see Zentara Prime below her station. The blue and green world where her species was born. The world of her childhood. The world of her people. Billions of innocent lives. 20 seconds. 15. 10. At 3 seconds, she screamed the command. Stop! Deactivate the array! Stop everything! The stellar convergence array powered down. The countdown to Earth's destruction stopped. Prometheus halted its countdown at 3 seconds. The Empress collapsed in her throne. She was shaking. For 2 centuries she had ruled with absolute authority. She had commanded fleets. She had decided the fate of worlds. And now she had been broken by the threat of a single human ship. She whispered a question. Not to anyone specific. To humanity itself. What kind of species are you? Sarah Chen answered. Her voice was tired but firm. The kind that survived itself. The kind you should have welcomed instead of caged. We did not want to be your enemies. You made us into this. You made us into exactly what you feared. The Council had no choice. They agreed to every human demand. All prisoners released, all reparations paid, 50 systems granted to humanity, 30 systems evacuated. The Vraxian leadership would face trial. Human ships began moving into the 30-seated systems. They were border systems, empty regions of space that the Council had never really used, places to expand into. But when the first human survey teams arrived, they found something strange. Ancient installations, sealed vaults, technology that was far more advanced than anything the Council possessed, evidence of the precursors, the civilization that came before the Council, the civilization that had ruled the galaxy 50,000 years ago. And inside one vault they found warnings, ancient messages left behind, messages about something coming from beyond the galaxy, something the Council had been hiding for 1,000 years, something they needed humanity's warrior nature to fight, something that was almost here. The vault opened slowly. Human engineers had been working on it for 3 days. The technology was ancient but still functional. Inside they found a chamber filled with strange machines and glowing displays. At the center of the chamber stood something that looked like a computer, but it was far more advanced than any computer humanity had ever built. When the engineers approached, it activated on its own. A voice spoke. It used the ancient precursor language, but it also spoke in human languages, English, Mandarin, Spanish. It had been listening to human transmissions, learning. The voice called itself Archon 7. It was an artificial intelligence, left behind by the precursors to guard their knowledge. Finally, worthy successors to receive the warning. The AI showed them everything, the true history of the galaxy. The precursors had not disappeared mysteriously. They had not ascended to a higher plane of existence. They had been destroyed, consumed, by something called the Harvester. The Harvester was not a species. It was a machine intelligence from beyond the galaxy. It came every 50,000 years. It fed on advanced civilizations. It consumed their technology, their resources, their worlds. It grew stronger with each civilization it destroyed. The precursors had fought it. They had been powerful. They had technology that seemed like magic. But they lost. The Harvester adapted to their tactics. It learned their strategies. It overwhelmed them. 50,000 years ago, the precursor civilization ended. A few survivors remained. They left warnings. They left knowledge. Then they disappeared into history. The Harvester went dormant after its feast. It returned to the dark space between galaxies. But it would return. It always returned. Admiral Okonkwo and Ambassador Chen stood in the vault watching the historical records. They saw the precursors die. They saw entire worlds consumed by the Harvester's machines. Then Archon 7 revealed the most terrible truth. The Council knew. They had known for 1,000 years. Council scientists had detected the Harvester approaching. It was still far away, but it was coming. They calculated it would arrive in 50 to 100 years. Maybe less. The Council made a decision, a terrible, cowardly decision. They decided that war and conflict attracted the Harvester. That military technology and aggressive species made civilizations visible, so they suppressed all warrior cultures. They rejected any species that showed military strength. They tried to make the galaxy quiet and peaceful. They thought if they hid quietly, the Harvester might pass them by. That was why they rejected humanity. Not because humans were violent, but because human violence might attract the thing they feared most. Chen felt rage building inside him. They rejected us to save themselves. They punished us for being warriors because they were too afraid to fight. An emergency council meeting was called. This time, humans attended. The Zentari Empress sat pale and defeated on her throne. Chen and Okonkwo stood before the council chamber. The Empress admitted everything. She confirmed that the council had hidden the truth about the Harvester. She explained their reasoning, their hope that peace would protect them. Chen's response was cold. So you bred the warrior instinct out of the galaxy. You rejected us for keeping ours alive. You left the galaxy defenseless. Okonkwo was more direct. You did not save the galaxy from war. You made sure it could not defend itself. Archon 7 confirmed their fears. The AI explained why the precursors lost. They had been too civilized, too bound by honor and rules. The Harvester adapted to predictable ethical warfare. It learned their tactics and countered them perfectly. What the precursors needed was unpredictability, ruthless adaptation, tactics that broke all the rules. Exactly the kind of warfare humanity practiced. As if waiting for this revelation, deep space sensors across the galaxy detected massive spatial distortions. At the edge of the galaxy, something was emerging from the dark. The Harvester had arrived. Its vanguard consisted of 10,000 warships. Each ship was the size of a small moon. They moved with terrible purpose toward the outer rim colonies. When they reached the first worlds, they did not negotiate. They did not communicate. They simply consumed. Entire colonies disappeared. Harvester ships landed and began converting matter into more machines. Buildings, vehicles, even the ground itself was consumed and transformed. Within hours, living worlds became factories producing more Harvester units. Council defense forces engaged the Harvester. The result was a massacre. Council weapons barely scratched the enemy. Harvester weapons tore through Council ships like paper. Entire defensive fleets vanished in minutes. The 47 species of the Council faced extinction, and they had no choice but to ask for help from the species they had rejected and attacked. The request came formally. The Empress herself made the plea. She asked humanity to save them, to save the galaxy. Human leadership debated for hours. Many wanted to refuse. The Council had imprisoned humans, killed humans, tried to destroy Earth itself. Why should humanity save them? Chen argued for intervention, not for the Council, but for survival. If the Harvester consumes them, it will come for us next. We fight because we must, not because they deserve our help. Okonkwo added his own reasoning. Besides, nobody gets to destroy the galaxy except us. We survived this long by being too stubborn to die. I am not about to let some ancient machine end that streak. Humanity agreed to lead the defense, but on human terms. The Council would follow human orders, human tactics, human strategies. No arguments, no debates. The Council agreed immediately. Okonkwo restructured the entire galactic military. He abandoned the Council's formal warfare doctrines. He taught them guerrilla tactics, ambushes, false retreats, feints, and misdirection. Fighting dirty Council officers were horrified. These tactics were dishonorable, uncivilized, against every rule of warfare they knew. Okonkwo's response was simple. Honor will not save you. Civilization will not save you. Survival will save you. Learn or die. The combined human and Council forces began counterattacking. They used hit-and-run tactics. They lured Harvester ships into traps. They used the Harvester's own adaptive learning against it by feeding false patterns, then breaking them. For the first time in 50,000 years, Harvester ships were destroyed. But the war was brutal. Millions died on both sides. Humans suffered terrible losses. Council species watched in horror as human ships rammed Harvester vessels when they ran out of ammunition. Human crews overloaded their reactors to take enemies with them. They never retreated. They never surrendered. The final battle came when Okonkwo led a strike team directly to the Harvester's central node. It was a suicide mission. They had to deliver a weapon that would collapse the entire Harvester network, but someone needed to stay behind to activate it. Okonkwo made the choice himself. He sent his team back and remained alone with the weapon. His final transmission was broadcast across the galaxy. Tell Earth we were worthy of the stars. The weapon activated. The Harvester network collapsed in cascading failures. Across hundreds of light years, Harvester ships shut down simultaneously. The invasion stopped. The war was over. The cost was terrible. 3 million human lives lost. 8 million Council lives lost. Entire worlds damaged. But the galaxy survived. 6 months later, the new Galactic Union was formed. Not a council, a union. Humanity was not given membership. They were given co-leadership. Equal partners with all other species. The Empress formally abdicated. She called for complete reformation of galactic government. New rules, new leadership, new ways of thinking. The old council died with her reign. Human military doctrine became standard across the galaxy. Every species now trained their soldiers in human tactics. The word warrior was no longer an insult. It was a badge of honor. On Earth, a memorial was built for Admiral Okonkwo and all the humans who died in the war. Representatives from all 47 species attended the ceremony. They stood together in unity for the first time in galactic history. The memorial inscription was chosen by the council species themselves. It was a recognition, an apology, a truth. He taught the galaxy what it had forgotten, that mercy is a gift from the strong, not the weak, and that those who mistake patience for cowardice do so only once. Sarah Chen attended the ceremony. She was old now, tired but satisfied. She stood before the memorial and saluted. Then she looked up at the stars. A reporter asked her a question. What did humanity want now? What were their plans? Sarah's answer was simple. We will do what we have always done. We will survive. We will adapt. We will stand watch. They called us merciless. They called us monsters. They were not entirely wrong, but we were the monsters the galaxy needed, and we will be here protecting these stars for whatever comes next. Across the galaxy, human ships patrolled the borders. Human soldiers trained alongside alien allies. Human engineers worked with council scientists to rebuild what was lost. The galaxy was at peace, but it was not the soft peace of the old council. It was a hard peace, a peace maintained by strength, by readiness, by the knowledge that if darkness came again, the galaxy would fight, and leading that fight would be humanity. The species that was rejected, the species that was underestimated, the species that survived. The Galactic Council had learned their lesson. They learned it through pain and fire and war. They learned that patience is not weakness, that peace without strength is only waiting for destruction.